Welcome to Femme Furious, a podcast where pop culture meets a feminine framing. I am your host, Julia Portela, and holy shit, today is the pilot episode. Before we dive in, I wanted to let you know that I am having a launch party this weekend, April 12th at 11 a.m. It is a digital party, so you can join right from Zoom. We'll have games, we'll have prizes, we will have a good time. So if you want to join, the link will be in the show notes. It's completely free. Please show up. Would love to see you there. All right, let's dive into our pilot episode. First and foremost, let's talk about the type of content and conversations you can expect to see on this podcast. On this podcast, Femme Furious, we will be diving into things in the media that tend to get overlooked for being feminine. These are things like romantasy, or rom-coms, for example, that are pretty popular amongst women or in femme-leaning spaces, but they don't really get a ton of hype outside of those spaces. We will also be diving into things that are trending or pop culturally relevant, but we will be looking at those things from the very specific lens of feminism. This podcast will also be deep diving into conversations that pertain to women or to femme-leaning folks. These are things like body images, stereotypes, gender roles. All of that is on the table and more, but we will be having those conversations through the lens of pop culture. So with that being said, here are some ground rules for the space. Rule number 1, show up to this space prepared to have a good time. The vibes are hopefully going to be vibing. I want the show to feel fun without lacking impact or lacking substance. Number 2, you don't need to be a content queen to join along. Personally, I am a content queen. I devour content in a way that is not normal or healthy. Fun fact, I was very late to Game of Thrones. I was a late Game of Thrones bloomer. One summer I was dating this guy who was so into Game of Thrones. It was just ahead of season 7. He was like, I'll lend you all of my books. Okay. I think I read all 5 books and watched like all 6 seasons of Game of Thrones in like 2 months, maybe a little bit more than 2 months. And if you want to know the most patriarchal man thing ever, he would subtly quiz me to see if I had actually read or actually watched, because somewhere in his mind or his heart, he did not believe that I had actually read and watched all of the Game of Thrones content the way that I did. But little did he know, I am just unwell. Okay? You don't need to be me. I don't need you to want to engage with every piece of content that is out in the world. I also don't want to do that, but we will be talking about a lot of those things on this podcast. You don't have to do all of the work to follow the show. I know life is busy. I know watching a lot of different types of shows or movies or reading a ton of books might not always be at the top priority for a lot of people. So guess what? Despite the fact that we will be covering all different types of content, including books, movies, TV shows, music, mythology even, you don't need to be in the know about all of the material at hand in order to follow the episode that we are talking about. Each episode will have a theme that is inspired by the material. And that will be more generalized, and it will allow you to listen to part of the episode, and it will be completely spoiler-free. That brings me to rule number 3. Listen with an open mind. Maybe you're not a content queen, but maybe you hear a conversation on the show that you enjoy. Maybe the theme at hand is just interesting to you. And if so, I encourage you to pick up the material. Pop culture and media is one of the coolest ways that we get to understand something about humanity as a whole. It clues us into what is shaping our society. It gives us a place to soundboard our own thoughts and feelings. So if you listen to this podcast with an open mind, you may find some interesting properties that really resonate with you that maybe you wouldn't have stumbled across before. That said, if you are invested in becoming a content queen, I have also posted the schedule in advance online. It's currently up for all of April, and all of May is on my website and on my Instagram, and will always stay 2 months ahead. So the month at hand, the month ahead. So you can always see what material is coming up. That way, if you want to read, engage, participate in the material, you can do so. And hopefully you find some stuff that you like along the way. And that leaves me with our last and most important ground rule. This is a safe space, one fostered with respect and compassion in mind. Because we're not just talking about books and music and movies. We are exploring the nuance of gender roles and stereotypes, which is a fluid conversation at best. Diversity, inclusivity, perspective are all things that I have taken into consideration and that will be on the foreground of my mind at the top of each episode. So we will probably be tackling a lot of the same issues, but from different angles over different episodes. Just know that whether you are a woman, or perhaps you are just somebody who feels safer in femme-leaning spaces, you are welcome in this community. You are welcome to join in on the conversation. Okay, with our ground rules out of the way, let's talk about semantics for a moment. This is a twice-weekly podcast that will be released on Mondays and on Thursdays. On Mondays, we will be deep diving into a series. I like deep dives. I am a chronic rewatcher. I am a chronic rereader. Sometimes I will reread something or rewatch something the second after it ends because I'm not ready to be done with the material, the content, the characters. I like spending time in a world. I like spending time with specific content. I like spending time with specific characters. So this is really designed for people like me who just need a little bit longer than one episode to explore a piece of content. Series on this show will not always pertain to TV. Because I know for a fact I will be covering Taylor Swift's entire discography at some point where every week will be a different album. So that would be another example for a series that is not necessarily TV related. The first series that we are covering is a TV show though, and that will be The Last of Us, which starts this Sunday. So if you have not seen season 1, go be a baddie who binges. Watch all of it. I think it's 9 episodes on HBO. Okay? Because we're starting with The Last of Us starting next Monday. That will be The Last of Us season 2. Thursday episodes. These are one-off episodes. They may be a book that I don't want to deep dive into. It might be movies that we don't need a ton of time with. It could be conversations that will be centered around one episode, but they will be one episode. Let's dive into the weekly structure so that you can get a feel for the flow of each week. Every week, we will start with the Call Me Beat Me section. I know this is not everyone's favorite type of content, but it is necessary for girl boss reasons. Okay? What you can expect from the Call Me Beat Me section is that this will be all of the fun ways that I will tell you how you can follow and support the podcast. So for example, that would be subscribing on Spotify or your preferred platform of podcasting, watching the full video breakdown on YouTube. You can follow the podcast on Instagram at Femme Furious Pod. You can send me an email with all of your thoughts, your comments, your favorite coffee items, your commentary on pop culture, anything at femmeandfuriouspod@gmail.com. By the way, Femme, Femme, okay? You can also be a part of our community. This is where the real magic happens. Community and connectivity was a huge consideration for me coming into this show. So that will be our safe harbor for all femme folk. We're going to have a ton of fun over there. It is a Patreon. It is called Too Femme, Too Furious, and it is $10 a month. That $10 will get you the following. Femme and Furious, fully loaded, which are our bonus episodes. You will get at least one, if not more, a month. A 15% discount on merch and live events. There is already merch. If you are interested in merch, you can currently buy merch. I have stickers, I have t-shirts. I'm recording this ahead of actually knowing what kind of content and material for merch I will have, but I know for sure I will have at least stickers and at least t-shirts. So we are launching with merch. If you want a discount on merch, you can join the Patreon. You will get 15% off. Okay? The Patreon, the $10 also gets you Sunday Brunch, which is a monthly virtual hangout. This is movie nights, happy hours, trivia parties, and more. Just a space every month for us to come together, hang out, have a good time. We'll also get ad-free episodes. A little bit later, this will make a little bit more sense, but you get access to the Suffragette Award, which is voting privileges on episode topics, bonus content, and more. You will get access to Tea Time, which is the online chat. So if you are somebody who just wants to be around like-minded people and talk to them all week long, great, you can join Tea Time. We'll be over there having a conversation. I will be in the chat. All of us in the Patreon will be on the chat. And then last but not least, you will get access to Fast 5. This is a weekly content roundup that will have what I'm reading, what I'm watching, what you guys are reading, what you guys are watching. And it will be just a nice space for us to catch up on all of the content that maybe we're not talking about on the podcast. Maybe we will talk about it on the podcast in the future. We'll see. But it will at least let us connect with all the different ways that we are engaging with pop culture for the week. Okay? So that is over on the Patreon. After we do our Call Me Beat Me section, we will go into the main section, which will be titled The Femme Frame. This is the meat and potatoes of the podcast. Fun fact, I did a poll over on my regular Instagram page, which is at Julia Portela. And this poll was to help me name the podcast. And the actual winner of that poll was The Femme Frame. Femme Furious was a very close second, but ultimately I decided to go with it as the title of the show because it just felt more in alignment with the vibes that I'm aiming for. I'm silly. I'm very snarky. I have the Gemini wit that flows through me, and Femme Furious not only being a canonically masculine Fast and Furious reference, but a pop culture reference at that, taking it, flipping it on its head, making it a little bit more feminine, tuning us into that feminine rage that is burning within us as we were discussing feminism. It just felt so much more in alignment with what I want to do and what I'm aiming for. But I did hear all of you. I don't want to diminish the votes of the people who did participate in the poll. So I have decided to take Femme Frame and just make it a big part of the structure of the show and add it in this way. Because really that is what we're doing. We're looking at pop culture from the feminine framing. So with that being said, the Femme Frame will have the following key components, or we'll be considering the following things as we dive into each episode. Each episode will look a little bit different. First and foremost, key feminist themes. This is where we'll dive into things like empowerment or critique of patriarchal systems or inclusivity. Anything that might be related to the topic at hand or the content and material at hand. This part of the Femme Frame will be spoiler free. So for whatever content we're doing for the week, the key feminist themes may gently brush up against and tell you why you may like or give a synopsis of the content at hand so you can follow along, but it's not going to spoil anything within the scope of the story or the show or the movie that we're talking about, if that's what we're doing in that episode. I will also take into consideration herstory, relevant history for women and the topic at hand. I am also thinking about representation when I am thinking about the Femme Frame, because I cannot in good faith do a podcast on feminism without considering things like gender and sexual fluidity, stereotypes, intersectionality. And I'm not perfect, okay? But I do want to try my best each episode to be as inclusive as possible when we are considering a topic at hand. I'm not going to get this right all of the time, but I welcome you to share your voices with me so that when we have a topic coming up, I can take all of those pieces, POVs, considerations, and add them in there so that we can be as diverse and as inclusive as possible on the show. Last but not least, we will be talking about cultural context. The Femme Frame is a place where we will be able to dive into the cultural and historical significance of the topic at hand. So for example, The femme frame will include how certain characters, films, or movements have shaped societal attitudes about gender and vice versa. Okay? That's our femme frame each week. And then we will dive into the last little segment, which is our burn book segment. This is essentially going to be an honorary award section for each episode, and it will have the following 5 honorary awards each week. The Bold and Bothered Award, which is an award strictly for the femme and the furious. It is the quote or the moment that really relays feminine rage each episode. I also have a Bold and Bothered sticker available for sale if you're interested in that. I also will have the Shiro Award. This is the award that's going to go to the baddie who is the most inspiring or the most empowering moment of each episode. Also a sticker for Shiro. The Femme Fatale Award, for the most smashed patriarchy moment of the episode. Speak Your Truth Trophy, which is the best quote, line, or lyric from the episode. And then the honorary Heartthrob, because I'm just a girl, okay? And I want to talk about the most swoon-worthy moments for our romantic heroes and our counterparts. And that will be our episode each week. With that being said, we'll do a mini version of this just to let you know how Femme Furious was born. It's our birthing story. That will be our femme frame this week. I want to flash back to 2016, 2017, when movements like Time's Up and Me Too really started to take off, and with it, a wave of feminist rage sort of emerged online. Suddenly there were videos being posted that said things like, if I'm too much, go find less. Or being basic is not a bad thing while holding a pumpkin spice latte. There were videos of girls who were making fun of guys who would say, you are not like other girls. And those girls would stitch those pieces of content together by saying like, yes, I am just like every other girl and other girls are cool. Okay? It was a pivotal time in my journey, 2016 to 2017, because it was the first time I was really forced to confront my own internalized misogyny. Despite the fact that I would have self-proclaimed being a feminist, I was what Gen Zers would now call a pick-me girl. I want to preface my backstory with this little tidbit. We cannot have conversations on this podcast about feminism without talking about stereotypes and without talking about gender fluidity. And I say this because there are so many strong women who play sports or who have what society would deem more masculine hobbies or qualities. And that somehow is separate from this conversation of feminism, when obviously that's just not true. But I think when we talk about something like hobbies and interests from the perspective of gender, and more specifically, from the perspective of why women engage with certain things, it's important to recognize how men filter into this. And for me personally, I got very into things that were liked by men in order to be liked by men. I was very much disavowing so many things that I actually enjoy in order to be more digestible for men. I got more into sports and further away from my obsession with Taylor Swift. And I did that specifically because I wanted to be more palatable by men. So when I talk about perspective, this is what I'm talking about. If you grew up playing or loving sports, and that is a fabric of who you are as a person, and your personhood just happens to be feminine or femme-leaning, then that's fair game in the spectrum of feminism, at least in my opinion. But that was not the case for me, especially with sports. Okay, I grew up doing musical theater. Sports weren't on my radar. Not that my family or people I knew didn't watch them, but I didn't watch them, and I didn't care about them. And I think somewhere along the way, I did actually grow to like them. But my initial interest in sports had everything to do with wanting to have common ground with men. Had nothing to do with my own interest, nothing to do with my own desire to explore. And for a long, long time, I really wanted to be seen as equal to my co-eds. I matched them in pretty much everything that they did. We went out to a bar, I matched them in their drink choices. So instead of ordering something girly, like a Cosmo or a martini or a sex on the beach, I drank what my male counterparts were drinking. And not only that, but I would match them drink for drink because I thought it would make me more cool, despite the fact that, I am significantly smaller in stature than most of my male counterparts. I matched all of my guy friends in their ambition. I actually think now I've outgrown some of them in their ambition. I matched them in their interests. None of them were interested in what I was interested in. And I was very vocal that conventionally feminine things like liking rom-coms or wanting to receive flowers were overrated. Despite the fact that internally, I didn't actually believe that to be true. And something to know about me. My day job is being an astrologer, which is quite possibly the most feminine job that you can have outside of this podcast. Most of my clients are she's, gays, or theys. And my MO in life is to consistently go deeper. It is to know myself fully, to know myself wholly, and to examine myself through the different experiences and lenses, which is why I love astrology, because it gives me a space to do that with every client that I see. So color me shocked when this new wave of feminism emerged and suddenly I felt hollow. Personally, I started to recognize that it was a calling for me to go deeper on my own spiritual journey in relation to my ideas of feminism, my own personal experience and exploration and promotion of feminism. It became an invitation to actually detangle myself from views, opinions, and interests that didn't support or even include me. And instead, I found myself falling into a rabbit hole of things that brought me joy when I was much younger, including Nancy Drew video games and Taylor Swift and Bam Boys and rom-coms and romanticy and so much more. This only multiplied for me as I watched my friends and people in my family begin to do the same. Femmes all over the internet started to reclaim their love for all things that never really got their due credit in pop culture, or that got diminished or teased in pop culture because they were feminine. And of course, this then changed the tide of what was deemed to be popular and accepted. And this brings us to 2023. It was one of the largest pop cultural movements in favor of all things feminine. 2023 brought us the astonishing introduction of Taylor Swift's The Eras Tour, which historically became the highest grossing concert tour and then the highest grossing concert film of all time. We had Beyonce on tour. 2023 brought us the Barbie movie, which had the best opening weekend and became the highest grossing film of the year. In 2023, romanticy was also officially introduced as a genre, and authors like Sarah J. Maas and Rebecca Yarros had banner years thanks to the explosion of BookTok and Bookstagram, where most of the creators skew feminine. There was just something really special about 2023 that made being feminine cool. And this wave of pop feminism came upon the heels of the historic overturning of Roe versus Wade in 2022. And since then, there's been this energetic rally call that has brought women, queer, and gender non-conforming folks together in a fight for gender equality. But a huge part of that has been around this idea of reclamation of our feminine joy and our hobbies and our interests. I mean, really, think about it. Thanks to the fucking patriarchy, things that have been deemed feminine have become synonymous with lame or less than or weak. This obviously isn't anything new, but for those of us who aren't men, when you are just consistently chewing off bits of this system, which is designed and dominated by men, it can feel so hard to authentically step into spaces of feminine joy and this reclamation of joy and compassion and communal connection that is happening in feminine spaces is so much more than just a moment. It's a movement. And this movement is one of great power because when women come together in covens, in concerts, and in community, magic happens. The idea of it takes a village is not just a notion, but a necessity for femme spaces. We see this across mythology with figures like the Furies or the triple-faced goddess whose necklace I always don. She is my matron saint. We see this with the Valkyries in mythology too. And we see this across history as well, from large movements like the suffragettes to smaller, more intimate forms of communal connection like sewing circles or birthing support or recipe swaps. When women come together, they share. They share their stories, they share their experiences, they share their wisdom. And from there, they are able to create a commune of knowledge and support and of love. And I had this all in mind as a part of my own journey of healing these ignored and abandoned parts of my own femininity. So when I was conjuring up Femme Furious, I wanted to create a space that allowed femme folks to examine pop culture through this lens of feminism. And I wanted to create a space for women and femme folks alike to be able to commune with others who just want to experience and dive into their feminine fury, their feminine joy, who want to go feral over their feminine heroes, or who simply just want to reflect on feminist icons or moments in pop culture that have given us a spark of empowerment or hope. And that is how Femme Furious ultimately came to be. And that's our femme frame for this week. And just for funsies, I thought we would crack open my personal burn book and do my own personal favorites from my own life, okay? So the Bold and Bothered Award for me goes to Diana's revenge dress. I'm sorry, but this is one of the most relatable things that has ever happened in pop culture. Like, you find out that your ex is a piece of shit who's cheating on you, so you just get dressed up and go out looking like a fucking snack and get photographed. 12 out of 10, no notes. My Shiro Award. Probably Claire from Outlander. She's compassionate, she's outspoken, she is feisty, she's a healer, and yet she never compromises on her values or her integrity. The Femme Fatale Award. Okay, bear with me, because I used to work for Disney, so this is a little bit nerdy, but Constance Hatchaway. And if you've never been to Disney, then I'm sorry, this is a bit of a spoiler for the Haunted Mansion ride, because the whole ride is essentially based off of this one woman who's named Constance, who essentially marries a rich man and then kills her husband, and she does this over and over and over again until we get all 999 haunts. 1,000 by the time we are pushed off the roof, because essentially we are the husband that she is marrying. She pushes us off, and then we enter the graveyard, okay? What an icon. Constance Hatchaway, Femme Fatale Award. Okay, Speak Your Truth trophy. I reserve the right to change my mind about all of these, but especially this one, because I do feel like there is some recency bias, but I am going to go with the line, or lyric rather, karma's a relaxing thought. Literally, ever since I heard Taylor Swift utter these lyrics in her song off of her album Midnights, the song's named Karma, my entire DNA changed. It was completely altered. Some of this I think is just because I do spiritual work and I talk about things like karma all the time, so it rings true for me because I'm constantly thinking about it. But the deeper aspect of it, the pettiness of it, I am forever changed. Okay, last but not least, honorary heartthrob. One thing to know about me, I'm a girl who loves to crush. So if we could just roll like Robert Downey Jr., Tom Hiddleston, Pedro Pascal, and Emma Darcy into one superhuman, that would be my honorary heartthrob. Also, if we're going fictional, Zayden Ryerson, obviously. And that's a wrap on our pilot episode. Thank you for tuning into this week of Femme Furious. Before we go, I have to thank one very special lady who has helped me get this podcast off of the ground. So my deepest gratitude and thanks to you, Jessica Yang, my soundboard for all things in my business. You have been my coach, my friend, and my creative confidant. I could not genuinely have done this podcast without you. If you want to support the pod, if you like this episode, if you're excited about what we're doing here, share it out with friends, leave a review, help other people find the podcast, okay? And come to the party this weekend, April 12th, 11 a.m. Link is in the show notes, okay? I will be back on Thursday. We'll be back tomorrow with a Femme Furious fully loaded bonus episode, which will be the moments and synopsis of The Last of Us Season 1, okay? And then we'll be back on Thursday with our regularly scheduled podcast content, which will be Curves in Culture. So until then, stay calm, vibe on, and I will see you tomorrow for The Last of Us recap of Season 1. Bye.